Unluckily, I wanted to choose another name. The session slide when I just started to create it was around about last year, November, when the new movie came out, Now You See Me, Now You Don't. So I thought it was a nice teaser, but of course I could not use this one, right? So basically today what I want to talk about is most forgotten topic like application insights. So in all our customer implementation and projects we see at a certain point after go live the colleagues start to complain about the performance, right? So here are some contact details. If you want to contact me afterwards, I can also share the session slides and maybe check for the recordings after work, or we maybe publish them on the YouTube channel. So maybe one of you or all of you are aware of some of these type of people in the company. So at some point in time it happens that the users start to complain, and of course the first level support desk is maybe getting frustrated by emails like my system is not working, why it is slow, it was working yesterday, last week, whatsoever, it's working on the machine from my colleague, it's not working for me, why? And then of course we need to find the answers, right? Here I provided some examples. Maybe some users might know the one or another. I like exceptions like generic SQL timeout occurred. Good, thank you for the information. Or you have loading spinning bars without any detail, not telling you when they finish the job. So it's very frustrating for the end users, right? So today with the session I want to take track of some highlights, like how do we set up the application insights, how do we get insights like performance, what are the users currently doing in the system, maybe also check for some exceptions and different types, so what to prevent. Like maybe some classics you also know from the previous screen, security roles, misconfiguration, some admin introduced new entities, you forgot to set them on the security role and bam, access is not working again, right? Of course you want to see this upfront in a test environment, in a UAT environment, and the application insights is running 24/7. So also when you have test automation in place, you see these errors logged in the insights very easily. Starting with the first classic thing, I call it a classic ping. We have a scatter chart, you can also have line charts, we just provide a basic endpoint address, it can be HTTP whatsoever, and we perform a classic ping test. When we get a response, it was a successful test, so easy peasy. Basically, if you want to say like, okay, it's let's say enough at the beginning to ping my CRM Dataverse address to say like, okay, I get a response, it's okay. In the next slide I will show why it's not, because you just get the response of the redirect to login page, right? So it's not really a proof that your system is up and running, but at least it would be the start entry point, right? So you can also configure different services, like include your Azure DevOps, include maybe Azure Functions, just to see if they are up and running, because maybe one of you already had issues. We are all human, right? Also Microsoft, so when admins forget to activate and install new SSL certificates, sometimes the portal goes down, right? So login attempt also fails, of course, when your system is down and you cannot work anymore. I also want to provide a demo at the end, so it's just like we go rapidly through the different slides to get an overview and an idea, and then of course I will show it directly in the system. Here we now see the more advanced variants of pinging a service. This would be the best approach, so basically we would introduce Azure function. So we call the function with header parameters, and the function itself can do the authentication, get the bearer token, and just pass the web API to see if the service is really up and running. Also with the benefit you can have maybe, you see it here in the bottom, flags, like I can also perform multiple tests if the endpoint version 8 is available, or maybe version 9. So different possibilities. But of course, keep in mind when you have an Azure function doing the test, also test the Azure function is up and running, right? If you turn it off, the test is not failing because it's not running, right? So just keep in mind, also put this in the test loop then as well. Also very nice is the overview of exceptions. So we have them in the timeline view. The out-of-the-box retention period is 90 days. We can change this. So going lower, going higher, but the out of the box is 90 days. We can change this, and we also see the different history. And then I have the functionality. I can simply drill down by types we have on the right, like different error codes. We have classifications like it's a CRM exception, like security. And at the bottom we also see sorted by count of impact, the amount of exceptions occurred in the system, and also what was the endpoint. Just as we see, I'm not sure if you can read this, but we have a CRM system, so we have some web API calls, we have the entities, batch executions. So this is the data loss logging, what we see in here. Coming more into detail, it's very user-friendly for an admin going into the system and not only seeing, oh, okay, in the last 24 hours we had 30,000 acceptance in the system, so everybody's panicking. We see this, what I said with the security roles, but also the plugins in the bottom of the page. So this is also important if I see like I have maybe the depth of the plugin calls is too deep, or maybe we have the timeout exception from 2-minute timeout. So we have these pre-classification to see like, okay, where's the heavy load of exceptions from the system coming from. Then if we want to dig deeper, sometimes it's not that easy, so the system will not tell me, okay, you have a security role missing on project entity, you cannot read it for user XYZ to fix it. So then we need to drill deeper into the root cause of the problem, and then we go into the complete session details. So we see all the calls happened before the event and after the event, so we can check maybe what was the root cause or what was involved in occurring of this error message. So we can also expand this dynamically and then go deep into the transaction details. There we also have access to the custom dimensions of the exception messages. Later on I will show how we do the setup in the system, and also if you have custom implementation using plugins, if you write Power Automate or PCF controls, you can also enrich them, sending the telemetry data you want, like timings, to the application insights, and then we have them logged in the so-called custom dimensions, so you have the full access. Here we see this is a so-called search graph. So basically what I would do in the system, I just enable it, it's logging automatically, and then I start with my analysis, right? So I could start creating different cohorts in the system, saying like, okay, maybe I'm an international company, so I have subsidiaries in Germany, in the US, in Australia, so maybe I want to create a cohort because it makes sense to report what is the country the user is coming from, because our CRM dataverse is only residing in one geolocation. So that I can also check for possible latency issues. So with my Indian team accessing the system in Europe, it's of course a higher latency than the Germans and the French accessing the system. So for this we can create different cohorts, and this is also possible for the streams, so we can drill this down. Well, in my example it's hard to read. Here I was searching for the projects, and we see them over time. So I just wanted to see an overview like, okay, when I want to create a baseline for the performance, I want to start creating an average, and then I see, check back the past 2 weeks, maybe past 30 days, and then I go more deep into the details to see what is going up in the environment. The same goes to the topic regarding performance. So the previous screens all were about the exceptions and error handling in the system. Of course, we have the same like the performance. Important to note is in the system it's similar working like Google Ads, right? So they have the tracking tokens, and they also have the direct telemetry coming from the server. But of course, if you have some fancy blocking extensions on your browser, it might be not visible in this view. Just to keep this in mind, it's not like an audit tool. So you cannot prove the user is doing anything, but out of the box, when nothing is blocked, the system is capable of seeing, okay, the user was logging into the login page, he went to the dashboard, he was opening a a grid view, then you went to the project form XYZ on application, blah, 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 blah. So we see all the details when it's not blocked by the browser. Also what we have is a time comparison, then we have the trend analysis directly. And what we also see on the right-hand side, because it's an AI day, right? We have insights automatically generated by the system for us, just providing first key indicators. Okay, performance may be going down for project form. It was looking that way the past weeks. There might be something going on. So these are just some out-of-the-box insights. Here now we see the query language, what we are using in the log analytics workspace, the KQL. And there it's also important, I wanted to highlight, is when I want to check the performance of the system, don't look for the average. Most of the users would not complain. But the three where it's not working, they complain the loudest. So keep in focus on the percentile of 95 and 99, so the worst thing possible in the system. So when you can make these guys happy, everyone else will be happy, right? So just keep a focus on the worst ones, so then it should be very easy. So this is just a sample query to give an overview how the structure looks like. It's a little bit different to learn, but of course we have AI, so they can write the queries for us. It's very easy. And at the bottom we see we have the CRM environment. So I see all these different types of operation. Just want to highlight web resource load. This might be a little bit tricky because of course the system only loads. I click on the sitemap navigation and it's open custom app, code page, power page, custom page, whatsoever, web resource. After that, we don't know what happens. So keep in mind using the custom tracking when you have a custom implementation of an app. So at this point, start and provide the custom telemetry inside your application you just implemented. And again, we also see it's a Dataverse, so I also have the details like what is the app I used when I have multiple apps in use, like sales together with project operations. So I see what is the user currently using. So sales, of course, they would work in the sales hub, where the project manager would go to the project operations. And then I also have the details like dedicated form IDs. So I can also analyze possible script impact on the form onload. And I also see the different operations like search activities and the different grid and subgrid views. This is the example for the query of form performance, as I just mentioned. So it's also best practice from Microsoft when I have, let's say, opportunity form with 20 scripts, but maybe 10 are disabled. You should consider to remove the 10 disabled scripts when you really don't need them to boost up the performance. So this is also a good possibility to find these different queries. And with this wording, we also see it's in milliseconds, so we see it's quite long. So I'm not sure who this user was and keeping the session alive so long. I would not do this, to be honest. But just as I said, it's the percentile 95, 99, so the worst of the worst. So this is the ones we want to highlight. And of course, we have the queries, we have the data, so you can export them to Excel, you can export them to Power BI, but we can also start create nice charts and then of course pin them to the Azure monitor, to an internal dashboard, or start using it in Power BI. So the different possibilities, you just have the raw data from the query, or you can also create your own graphic analysis, making sense if you want to compare maybe performance. How was it past week? One colleague was saying, okay, with the Microsoft last updates, it got even worse, so I could go back in time and check like, okay, what was the performance 2 weeks before, 1 week before, what is it now? So maybe I can imply when exception message goes up, I can maybe derive, okay, something is going on. So this is just the starting point with the comparison. And as I mentioned, also the system has automatic insights, smart detection they call it. So over time it's just comparing, okay, if they see like now you have an 80% increase of exceptions in comparison to the last 90 days, something might be wrong. And in that case, you would see you get the message directly from the system, and it is also providing alerts. So the system can be set up sending me emails, maybe doing a voice call, sending me an SMS, and informing me about the possible issue it just detected. This is another example where we see I have the query together with the overview, and as I just mentioned, we can export them, and also Microsoft provides big community where we have different snippets for the possible Azure monitors. So you can also track the different application, VMs, SQL servers, whatsoever, and also the Dataverse. And they also provide out-of-the-box queries you can use. They also have different packages out of the box and workbooks I will show later. So it is not a blank system when you start. So you have the first initial query saying like, I don't know, what is the five slowest plugins in my system, or what is the top 10 exceptions by category, so you don't need to start from scratch. Then I mentioned I'm a fan because it's another system where the user would need to work, right? So another system where to look at. I'm a fan putting it into Power BI and then directly embed it in the Dynamics CRM as a dashboard, or maybe as an administrator dashboard. Also providing the benefit with the Power BI data model in the dataset. I also create and prepared it to be used by Copilot. You have the alerting, you can follow the different dashboards and reports. You can subscribe to the dashboards, that's good as an admin. So I have a Power BI created like this one. I subscribe to it to get weekly news. So the system would generate me an email, attach the results from the report. And also using incremental refresh, I can also easily break the 90-day limit of the log retention, because it would be, to be honest, expensive if I want to extend it to 120 days. So I just keep Power BI pulling the data on a day-to-day basis, and I just have all the history going back as long as I want. This was just an easy example I did for a client. They were just requesting, okay, I want to know where to set my maintenance window. When do I have the system used actively by all my employees? So this is the user heat map based on the time accessing and working with the system, just providing a rough overview what is the core business time the system is used, that I can plan maybe possible maintenance windows. Here we see the out-of-the-box predefined workbooks from Microsoft. We also see they are defined as a template, so you can easily highlight them. And this also provides the capability you import from community predefined workbooks, but you can also start create your own. And then when you have one system implemented, maybe create your workbook and export it to be reused on another one. So let's say once you make a CRM implementation for EMEA, and now you think like, okay, maybe it makes sense for the latency in China, let's host a dedicated own environment. We don't want to mix with China, right? So just let them create their own tenant. So you just take your workbooks and just move them directly to the China tenant and have the same reporting without any action. Here on the screen we see the setup and how easy it is. I just need to have the admin permission in the Power Platform Admin Center, and then based on the needs and also the capacity I want to log the data for is the configuration. Later I will also show some best practices. So on the setup you just select what you want to track. We also see it has a preview for the Power Pages as well. But you would also separate, I want to see the Dataverse logs in detail. I can also say I want to focus on plugins only, I don't need page views or stuff. But also the Power Automate executions, there with the attributes we can also add custom timing. It's very handy, and we see it's pretty straightforward. It's a wizard just clicking through and easy as that. The same applies for the finance operations. We have the toggle buttons, what you want to see. You just need to provide the string to the log analytics and the application insights to connect with, but that's it. nothing more. Okay, coming to the best practices, just wanted to recommend when you create the application insights, I recommend that you create the log analytics workspace first, because then you can define a clear name. Otherwise, when you go the way around creating the application insights first, you get GUID, blah, 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 log analytics doesn't look readable. So create the log analytics first, then the application insights, select the pre-created log analytics and just go forward with it. Then, as we saw on the previous screen with the Dataverse setup, Microsoft is splitting it. So for each configuration, like if I want to have Dataverse, I need one log analytic and application insight. For Flow, I need another one. For the Power Page, I need another one. Sounds complicated, but it's good. You're not mixing up all the different topics, and you can also address having different retention times. Saying like maybe Dataverse is most critical, so I keep it, let's say retention 60 days, but the flows I just be interested in the last 7 days, so I can also cut off the creation of the costs in the system. And as I also mentioned, keep on focus on the worst things in the application insight, like average reporting might look nice, but it's not the truth. So just check the percentiles of 95 minimum. And in the best case, when you can also address the P99, everything should be fine in the system. So I was saying it's just the preparation, so we do the demonstration right away. This one is not moving. Well, then I try it that way. Okay, of course I have it installed in our environment. Going to the portal, I have my application insights. Here you see with the different automatic created workspaces, they are starting with the strange GUIDs. So it's easy when you create them, just create the log analytics first and then create the application insights. We see it that way. We have a naming convention and the same goes for the workspace. So create this one first. For the connectivity with the finance operations, you need these either connection strings or the instrumentation keys. With the Dataverse, it's just in the admin center. Click through the wizard and that's it. Starting with the basics, let me, there we go. Oh. No Teams, no work today. Okay, first of all, we start with, let's say, the basic entry is we have the K indicators, failed requests, we have server responses, so you see what is the activity level on the related Dataverse. We have the requests and availability is the ping I was just mentioned. Then, of course, we have dashboards in the App Insights as well. Here you can create your queries using the query language. You create the visuals and then just start pinging the elements to the related dashboard. Here we see I just created some reports or do over time analysis, where I want to check the performance count on a specific form. In this case, I just identified in the Sales Hub the opportunity form is very slow in loading. So I wanted to see if there's a possible impact by scripts with an onload element. So I was just plotting the loading performance of past 7 days for the opportunity form on the bottom left. But as well, I just created this from a query. I can also directly jump into, rerun the query, see the overview, and dig deeper into the details. This was just how it started, right? Oh, it's hard working with one hand. Oh. Yeah, this is the dashboard. Also, keep in mind you set up the system and it's automatically converting the time zone you are using. So in the portal I have the settings that it's using my local time zone as Germany, so it's automatically recalculating all the values for me. But going into the details, I don't show everything. Just smart detect is what I mentioned, so the system will automatically check, so try to identify what was going on. So I see all the different settings. I can also turn them on or turn them off, how I want to do it. So if I don't want to have any of these, just get rid of them, turn it off. But we also have the alerts in place for the configuration. Search was the topic where I was showing I can take use of the different cohorts I defined in the system. So just start by entering the different filter criteria you directly want to see in here. So just add accordingly, so when it's page views or a specific application, if I want to check the performance on the sales hub, I would directly say like, okay, add module is the sales hub, and then it's only showing what's going on in there. Filter for the entity, then maybe for page views or maybe search queries. So this just drilling deep and see what is going on. With the ping requests, what we see in here, as the Dataverse is not multi-region capable, we just have our system hosted in EMEA, of course, as a German company, and I implemented the pinging routes from the different subsidiaries just to get an overview in the scatter plot from the different locations we are working. So I also see some exceptions like, okay, here East US was a peak on Sunday. Here it was East US again, so you get the idea, right? Here I made a test case, so I directly had 6 failures, so I can now start directly drill into the issues, what is happening, and what is also good, you can automatically create the SLA reports for you to follow up. So you generate them and see what's the uptime of your current system. And also with the creation, it's very simple. What we saw in the sample, it's a classic ping, right? So you just give the endpoint, choose your target location. So Microsoft's recommending, I think, 5 or 7 minimum, just to get a good picture. And the standard ones, as we recommend, use your own Azure functions, provide the related criteria to pass and the header details to get a more insight, like pinging the correct web API endpoints to see that your system is up and running and users can log in and really use the system. Then next to it, we saw it is the exception overview. So we see the top classes and also with over time. So I, of course, can drill in, see another picture. Here was a peak overall around midnight. I see here we have an issue with some custom entity of Adobe. So something is going on with our templates. I could then check, okay, I have for this time frame, for this exception method, I have 62 samples. So I can directly drill into the system and see, okay, what was the user trying to do in this complete session? What was going on? So I also see he was trying it not once, it was tried twice. And then I can see on the right hand side, okay, this is a message I can read. This is my user, and he cannot read it. So it's easy, I can fix it, right? So nothing crazy about it. But as I mentioned as well, I see everything. This one will be important later on, the session ID. But you see it, and also I have the custom attributes. So if we have this implemented as well with custom APIs like own JavaScript or plugins, it will also be logged in the system. Then I have the possibility, the different counts. So full detail, drilling deep, checking how many users are affected, or maybe what is the worst ever we have in the system. And here it's also something, as an admin and a developer, it's also fun looking into this and finding stuff like this. I mean, we have 26 and we are still using the endpoint 8. I think this was 2013, somewhere around this. 2016 was the 8.2, I guess. So we still have issues. Okay, coming to the performance, also a good topic. I talked about keep a focus on the worst ones, and the system is making it very clear and easy for us. So I can say like, okay, I don't care about the average. Show me where the problems start to hit me. So I see we have an average load overall in the system from around about 1 second. And I see here's definitely going something wrong with a module run detail and resource assignments. Of course, today we had a session Ron was showing with the RSO, right? So resource assignments has something to do with a schedule board. There's an integration and a lot of synchronization going on. So something happens in the system and I see, yeah, 107 users affected, might be possible resources, and with a runtime of maybe 2 minutes, okay, could be a plugin with a synchronization logic. It's below 2 minutes, right? It's the magical exception timeline of a plugin. So I could start to drill deep. So I also see, okay, when was it happening? What was the time? And what was the state? Overall, we see, okay, this one is hosted in Dublin. So our system is in Ireland. It's not in the Netherlands. And again, I now start and drill deep into the system. Check what the user was trying to do, and I also can check maybe who tried to do it, and I see, okay, this is using some parameters, so it might be an automated functionality. And going deep into this, now I have the so-called user ID and authenticated user IDs. Now I would go back to my intro and check if this is maybe a service principal user, to see maybe it's an integration job. So this is how we would start to invest in the issue right now. Then of course, if it's a real issue, we have integration using Azure DevOps templates. So I can create directly a work item from this tracking session. So we just analyzed, I have an idea, okay, it might be service principal with the synchronization schedule board and the PSA, and let's create maybe a bug for this ticket. So I can define my own Azure DevOps templates, pre-filling all the details I want. It is, maybe I'm not logged in correctly. Oh, there we go. So pre-filling all the values for me, and because it's a template, you define like iteration, assign it to a sprint, automatically assign it to a dedicated person, and we have the basic information to start working with this related issue in the system. So easy as that, just by clicking the related button, so don't need to switch systems at all. This one I will show later on, but we go there. Alerts I was mentioning, so you can simply subscribe to the different type of error messages like exceptions. So you get automatically emails or maybe auto-generate SMS and send it, or a voice call. The logs itself is the overview where the magic queries happened, and as I mentioned, Microsoft provides the out-of-the-box in the Query Hub. So you start with predefined sets. You see them, it's all marked with example queries. Response time, counts, slowest 5, these type of top-down queries for different purpose, right? And we also have the big community repository where we use the Azure monitoring samples provided by anyone, and there you can also drill into the different scenarios like servers, maybe FNO, and also link this entirely in the system. So here you get all the predefined values and queries, how to work with the system, so nothing you need to worry about. I want to see usage. Okay, active users might be a query like that. So I can copy it, throw it into a new session, simply turn on execute. Oh. What do I miss?
Problem is start is not defined. You can see that the from start time is marked as invalid.
We talk AI. I wanted to show this in 5 minutes, but anyway. Yeah, he knows that I was creating all the queries in the same session, so he knows I'm working with Power BI with the KQL queries, so we know each other already, so we are friends. And also, as we learned today, we have the different types of agents, right? So to make my life more comfy, I'm not using the latest one. It's very expensive. I used the previous, and I also changed my rating. Add it to the end. Let's see what he's saying.
It doesn't recognize that from start time.
Yeah. I just want to show you how I use it. Basically, I'm just, as Sebastian mentioned, it's not working, so now I'm interacting, giving him the feedback what passed. Because you define the date outside the query in the browser. Now he needs to learn that I want to have it inside the query. There we go. So 30 days ago, now he has it. So we saw this in the first time. It was on set in query, but it was just using a variable not defined. So I think in copy paste on this Microsoft Azure monitoring, they forgot the first line defining this, but basically this is how it works, right? So you have all these different type of queries predefined for all the different situations. So also probably all your developers are already using Application Insights. So here you just connect the dots. You have the different environments now enriched with the Dataverse as well. All the queries, of course, you can save for the reusage. So we see I have different loading queries predefined, performance queries as well. So if the support gets a call that the system is slow, I can directly check it. Counts by country as an international company, of course. So all these different types. You also get the details of the data model for the App Insights using the Dataverse. And here we see page view. I have the timestamps. Important is the duration, basically in milliseconds. I have my custom dimensions, so when I want to log my own stuff using plugins or scripts or maybe PCF controls, so I can enrich this. And then important is the operation ID, and where is it? The session ID. Now it's just bad that the computer died. I cannot show my own session, just to show it. When the support call now gets a call, I have a problem with my system, it's slow, I have an exception, blah, blah, blah. Ask them what's your session ID. You go to the About section and you just comment this GUID string. This is your session. And we know the session. So I just need to check if I can find my queries. It's all gone. Ah, no, there it is. Previously I was just recording a session, so the user was complaining this was the session, so let's find out. So I have my session query created by my agent, and I'm just replacing the GUID, and I want to check what happened the last 24 hours, expecting they went to bed once, so maybe just checking first this one. Always forgot to execute everything. And here we have the full session log of this dedicated user and what they tried to do in the system. Let's change reverse order of the different requests, and I was seeing, okay, we have some web API requests, a client UCI, some license validation, of course, and then we start Copilot, okay, it's auto-loading, web API requests. Then we start having some actuals coming up. So of course we are using project operations as well in our system. Change some user settings. AI insights, interesting. So you get the idea. So I have the complete transaction, what the user was doing the entire day. So I see, okay, I saw actuals, invoice transactions, project tasks. So basically this might be accounting. We are near to month end, so this was the trace of basic accounting day-to-day life. And now of course I have the session, I can check the user, I have the traces, I have the exceptions, and I can drill deeper to this. Now I see I just have 8 minutes left, so we need to speed up. Long story short, we have the agents lately included in the Application Insights as well. So all the stuff we did as of now is very easy for end user. You don't need to use the queries anymore. Just ask the Copilot or the agent all the related information you want to know. And I just started with some basic ideas. Just prepared this, that it's hopefully pre-cached, that he's not thinking so long. Let's see if it's working. So basically as well, he was also recommending to checking not the average, maybe focusing on the worst. He also has, like in Teams, automatic recommendations like what to ask that he can work for you, but basically you get the idea, right? We have the agent, the system is logging all the details like the users, we have the sessions. So typically now a support colleague could directly open the agent and ask like, okay, provide me session details for session XYZ. Focus on exceptions first. So in this case, I was just asking like, what is the loading performance for the page views of the past 7 days per subsidiary country? And he also identifies himself, okay, for Germany something is going wrong on the 18th and coming up with some recommendations. And I would just like to follow and say, okay, Germany, we saw there is a peak, right? So now drill deep into and check like, why, what happened? So now we just start interacting, we have all the data, and the agent basically is answering all the stuff to us. And later we can also implement this, automate this. Just imagine like you get a monthly review from the agent per email, or maybe once a week. And I think therefore we have 6 minutes. I would keep it for the Q&A and would say, let him think, he's doing his work. Thank you very much.